Hi, Jerad. Welcome to the Trial to Pay podcast, third episode. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Yep, pretty good today. Great. So, just to get us rolling, I just wondered, do you have a guiding principle, so like a philosophy that just kind of like influences how you build products, businesses, and just keeps you motivated, moving in the right direction?
Yeah. So this has changed a lot recently. I'd say last year I actually got serious about building businesses. Prior to that, I was really building projects, but I wasn't thinking of them as businesses. And so, I've kind of focused on building products for businesses as opposed to consumers. I've had a lot of projects that were meant to be fun or interesting, but not really make money, right? I thought I would figure out that piece later on. But that's kind of how I've been thinking about it recently.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's finding that kind of like balance between the two, isn't it?
Yeah,
Something that's fun, but it's also got a market.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So we're going to be talking about your product, SaaS product, Hypertext today. So I'll just to kind of give a very brief sort of intro into that, but we'll talk about it more in a little bit. But it's an AI writing tool, I'd say, with a difference as far as I can understand it. So you go a little deeper on the kind of like research side of things to come up with sort of quality writing is how I understand. But we'll get into it a little bit more in a bit. So yeah, I guess just initially, just be cool to get into your kind of background and roll back the years a little bit. Yeah, because I was looking through your LinkedIn, just trying to get a sense for your background, because you've been building things for quite a while, web development and so on. But so going back to kind of your college days, so because you didn't do computer science at college, did you? It was technical communication, I think.
Yeah, that's what I ended up with, although I jumped around between like 5 different majors. So, yeah.
Cool. So, and then I saw sort of following on from that, you had quite a kind of, there was sort of like a writing, a sort of editorial kind of interest that you developed with there. Is that right?
Yeah. I was really interested in writing in college in particular. And I ended up working at the newspaper there, became what's it called? The chief of the organization there. And yeah, it was something that really drew me in, but it wasn't something I looked at as a career necessarily. My degree in technical communications was kind of like the bridge between writing and also being more of the technical side of things. It was also an easy way for me to get out of college because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do at that time. So I was like, all right, we're going to just get done with this and move on. I'll figure it out later.
Yep. But I can get a sense for maybe how that led to, we can talk about a little bit later, how it did lead to sort of Hypertext.
Yeah.
I would imagine. Mm-hmm. But in terms of sort of how you got into sort of building stuff, web apps and websites, that sort of thing, was that, did that come before college, or did it come afterwards? Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I was just interested in building things. I'd build simple websites, play around with Macromedia Flash back then.
Yep.
The main goal was to learn C++ and build video games at some point.
Yeah.
I bought a book on C++ and was like, all right, might be biting off too much right now.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the basics.
I was there as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So okay. So you're into a little bit earlier on, and then so I guess going to college, doing it, you didn't decide to kind of focus on computer science in college. You weren't sort of that far into it at that point. It was something that developed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So college for me was more of a social endeavor. It was a fun thing, but I knew what I really wanted to do was own my own business. Yes. And build something myself, right? So like this whole time I was learning skills to go towards that direction, not necessarily have a career because I wasn't sure what I wanted to apply myself to yet. So really my career started as a software developer after I left college. That's when I really started to learn those skills. I had an internship in Costa Rica with a small nonprofit organization. And while I was there, I bought a jQuery book, started learning jQuery, and really learned how to do some of this interactive web stuff. This was like 13 years ago, so it's been a while now. So that obviously that seems like very old technology, but that was the beginnings. And then I was like, wow, so now I know this, I can actually apply that start building things. They just need to figure out what to build at that point. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I went through a number of products. The first one I think you wanted to talk about was Narrow.
Yeah, I
Um,
did spot that one. Yeah.
yeah. So Narrow, it's crazy to think now that that was actually so far has been my most successful product in terms of MRR. It
Hmm.
got up to 13K MRR.
Great. Yeah.
I had two founders. One was a content marketer. That helped a lot, right? Because then I could focus on building. He could
Yeah.
focus on getting it out there. And Narrow was essentially one of these simple Twitter automation platforms. Back when Twitter had an open API, you could do anything you wanted, right?
Yeah.
So it would follow users that were on the platform. It would like their content, and then that would help get your account exposure. And man, yeah, a lot of people were interested in that back then.
Great. Okay. So, okay. And so, kind of wanting to kind of do something entrepreneurial, build things that started like really early on, even like when you were young before
Yeah,
college. You
yeah,
always kind of
yeah,
felt
and
like you wanted to build your own business, and yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So this was something that was kind of seeded in me long
yeah.
before I actually took action on it, right? Because I didn't know what the first steps were, but I knew it was directionally where I wanted to head.
So, how did you get to a place where you felt like you could make a leap on that first product?
So actually in college, a couple of friends and I were building something it was like a local directory. So I went to college at UW Stout in Menominee, Wisconsin. And back then I was really good at social media, in particular Facebook, right? So I could build a Facebook page, get a lot of attention there. And we actually created this small local directory for like things going on in town, right? And companies could go in and post events that were happening in the area. And we actually ended up selling an ad for like $500 to some local realtor who was on there, which
Yeah.
is kind of nuts given like the exposure that we had. It wasn't that good. But yeah, that was kind of the first taste of like, okay, like
Yeah.
I could do this internet thing. Like there is actually money here. People are willing to pay for it. You just got to figure out how to get attention. And that was difficult because that was like a two-sided marketplace. I
Right.
didn't realize that that's actually one of the more complicated businesses to create.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun to do. And so I was like, all right, this is something I should really think about post-college.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then did you just sort of have a kind of series of kind of little products you were doing kind of on the side over the years? And it was Narrow. Did that end up being a full time thing? I guess so with the MRR.
It's interesting because I'd always had a job, right? A full-time job. And I did work on Narrow for 3 months. And then everything exploded because that was the point when Twitter was like, all right, we're going to start blocking API access to these things.
Yeah.
And that was a really valuable lesson to learn. Like, okay, this is platform risk. Like, if you
Exactly.
create
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like this, you can get shut down.
Yeah.
You really don't own your business when you're dependent on another business for that. So that, yeah, it was a tough thing to learn. I actually tried reviving it over and over, and
Yeah.
that was kind of a mistake because I should have just been like, all right, this is what it was. Time to move on, figure out
Run its
something else to do. But
yeah.
yeah, it's
Run
a
its
tough lesson
course.
to learn. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. Great though, but that's a significant early success. So you must have taken something from that, regardless.
Yeah, for sure. That was like the motivation I needed to continue doing this. And my one of my co-founders had a pretty significant share, so it wasn't like all that money was going to me. But
Yeah.
there weren't AI costs back then either, like there are now. So these
Yeah.
days you build apps with AI, pretty
Yeah.
expensive to run. Back then it was just like pure profit almost, right?
So let's move into talking a little bit about hypertext then. So I guess the first thing is just sort of thinking about how. Well, actually, the first thing is perhaps you could just sort of just give a quick intro in terms of kind of what actually is the product and kind of
Hmm.
who's it for,
Hmm.
and why do they need it?
Yeah. So that has evolved quite a bit, but basically right now, the what Hypertext is it's an advanced AI article writing tool, and so it really focuses on writing in-depth articles. You could go to ChatGPT, have it create like pretty good article these days of whatever you want, but what differentiates Hypertext is you can actually select which research you want to pull from. Um, and you can create these really long format posts as well. So up to 5,000 words long if you want to. The focus is really SEO content, but
Yeah.
the writing styles are also, you can customize them to match your writing style. So it doesn't need to be like this programmatic kind of dry writing. You can make it more interesting that way. And then it has all the standard sort of layers of SEO optimization on top of it. Um, and yeah, that was sort of the main idea. That's where it's ended up at this point, and it's taken a while to get there.
Yeah, cool. So who are your users, or so your ICP, if
Hmm.
you like?
Yeah. So initially, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Initially, this was like I'm trying to solve my own problem. I
Yeah.
built this and started experimenting with this because I didn't want to write blog posts. I was
Yeah.
like, all right, there, natural developer things like how can I build something to solve this problem? There were solutions out there. I didn't necessarily want to look at the competition because I didn't want to just get into copycat mode where I'm taking
Yes.
their features and just building off that. So I was like, all right, how do I think of this from first principles and build the product that I would want to use in the way that I want to use it? So I built it for myself initially. The problem is I never actually went and used it for the project that I was building it for, right? So I created it, I got interested in it, and then I launched it. But who, I wasn't sure how to get that initial traction of like, all
Mm.
right, now I've got to go and find somebody to sell this to. So I didn't have that in mind because I'm not an SEO, right? Like
Yeah.
I knew I could build something that did what I wanted it to, but I didn't know how to go and find those customers for it. And that took, uh, almost 9 months to figure that part of it out.
Yeah.
It was a long journey.
Great. Yeah, we can get into that in a minute. So would you, because had you been doing in between, so when you're doing that kind of writing and editorial stuff at college, had you been doing much writing, the type of which this problem would solve? Did you need to do like some blog posts or something in some of your previous businesses?
Not really. No,
No.
I honestly, I kind of stopped writing after
Yeah.
college. Switched full time to uh, being a software engineer, focusing on that career. Also, I didn't mention, but I'm married. I've got 3 kids under 5, so I'm very busy with that as well.
Yeah.
So I'm, trying to squeeze as much as I can into the limited time I have.
Yeah. So would you say though that the kind of writing editorial stuff that you did back in college was what kind of informed it? Was that the sort of the itch that you were trying to scratch, sort of in hindsight?
Um, I think in a way it was because I wanted to write good quality articles,
Yeah.
not things that were just fluff pieces that a computer could generate, or sorry, AI could create, but were dry, right? So, in a way, it was about keeping the standard very high for what the system created, rather than just getting the job done and that being that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Actually, I think there are other tools out there that there's a lot of talk about. Okay, it writes in your voice, but not so much about kind of like ensuring that kind of high quality, well researched
Yeah,
output. So I think that's it seems like a
that
really
was
strong sort of
Yeah, that
feature.
was very much the feedback that I'd gotten from many of the customers once I figured out who I was targeting was this is the best writing tool available in terms of the writing quality itself. And that was kind of the missing piece. And it's so hard to understand, like when you have a bunch of competitors, what each of them specializes in. You look at their landing page and you think, wow, these guys have it
Yeah,
figured out, right? They've got like
yeah, yeah.
hundreds of testimonials, and you're like, man, why even compete at this
Might
point?
as well forget it. Yeah, it always feels like
Yeah.
that, doesn't it? But it's
Yeah, it
not. It's
does.
often not the truth.
It's not, yeah, not always true. Because although those are often cherry picked and they can make the testimonials look really good, the landing page might look great, but that design does not necessarily indicate that the product itself is doing exactly what it promises to do.
Yeah,
And so that is a daunting experience to go through. You think like you're way behind the curve, and then you
yeah,
hear from your customers that, oh yeah, this is actually the best tool they've used, and they've tried all of them, right?
yeah.
So
And
yeah.
it's because you've done something slightly different, which you have.
Yeah. Mhm.
So the users that you do have, what's the kind of? I mean, maybe it's obvious, but they need to write content. What's the sort of the actual sort of specific pain that they have that is going to make is making you use your product over the others.
Yeah. So the customer profile that I ended up finding that worked really well with this project in particular was people who had niche content sites.
Okay, yeah,
So, bloggers essentially, right? They write on a very specific topic, they write in depth, but they also really care about the writing being their voice,
yeah,
which is a little different if you have a SaaS business and you just have some blog posts that can be more generic, right? It's more information focused. But these bloggers, they want to go and have very minimal editing when they go, because everyone should be editing AI content regardless of
yeah,
how good it comes out, right? Like you do need to go in there and edit it. And this just made it easy because it actually sounded like they're writing. So it took them much less time to go in, edit the content, get it published. And I found that was the audience that really embraced the tool. And so I started building more things for them over time.
And so, I mean, not having used the tool, but does it sort of, if you're kind of, you want to write an article, you're not even sure sort of how to approach it, does it sort of give you a kind of framework or sort of like a process, and so help guide you through it in a structured way?
Yeah, there's sort of two modes you can do. One is like the typical form that you fill out that's pretty generic. It has some optional fields. So you give a topic, you specify the target audience. You might specify the type of article. So, is this a how-to? Is this informational? Is this an opinion piece? Whatever. There's like 20 different types of articles you could choose from. And then there's also an automatic mode. So you can let AI figure that out for you, produce the content. And then there's a few other options in there. So what you can do is either create an article using that, or you can go into an outline mode where then that generates a complete outline of topics that would be covered in this piece. It gives you the outline. You can go and modify points per section. And then when you actually go to generate it, it will research each one of those sections independently and stitch together this article. Because you have to remember back in 2024, it's done not that long ago, but AI tools had shorter context windows. They could not create articles that were more than like 750 words. So the workaround was you have to figure out how to create and stitch together these individual sections into longer pieces. And that's really where Hypertext excels.
Yeah, that's a little similar to what they're doing now, isn't it? I suppose with the kind of reasoning mode, where they break a prompt up and so you were sort of almost ahead of that curve a little bit in your own way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting to see those tools coming online now and be like, well, I thought I was thinking about these principles back in the day, but too bad I didn't implement it the exact same way.
Yep.
The other thing I like about it though is like a lot of these thinking tools, they'll do the research automatically for you. But if you really care about the sources that you want to pull from, you can go, and there's another way to approach the whole article creation process, which is you select the sources that you care about, that are accurate, and that you basically want to use as the reference for the article. So you can select those sources, and then we generate what's called a research report. So it will summarize all of the content for all of the websites that you've selected. And then you use that as the basis for writing whatever piece you're working on. So you might have 10 sources in there. It's summarized down to, a shorter, more condensed form. You use that as reference for the longer article that you want to create. And I really like that approach because there's you're not worrying about hallucination. The only thing you're really worrying about is that the authors of those pieces may have gotten something wrong themselves, but that's why you reference them in your content as well. So so it's really like a way to fact check content that AI is creating.
Yeah, it's almost just putting the right guardrails around it, I suppose.
Exactly.
In a sense. So, okay, so I was going to ask you how you came up with the idea, but I suppose maybe it's just something that just kind of, you tell me, how did that come about?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. I think the idea was like, I want to write blog posts for one of my projects to help grow it. And then that became the main idea I was working on after I got into it a while. So yeah, it was scratching my own itch, trying to solve my own problem, and that's really how the idea came about.
Yeah, and while it's sort of you can kind of feel that there might be the seed of it somewhere in your early kind of writing sort of interest and experience at college, it sounds like more recently you must have done quite a bit of research into how good writing is done to kind of come up with this methodology. I
Oh,
mean,
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah,
So like, how did I, yeah, come up with the approach?
yeah,
Yeah, it must have been just from my editorial background because it
yeah,
was never an intentional, like, it just seemed like the right way of writing
yeah,
as opposed to wanting to create anything generic. It was like, all right, this is how you should approach writing, especially if you're creating something that you're publishing as factual. Like
yeah,
you need to actually do that research, make sure you're citing your sources, and you can't just let AI hallucinate because back then that was a huge problem. It's better at it now, and
yeah,
we can get into the problems that has on
yeah.
my company. But yeah,
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I guess so far when I've kind of maybe tried to use ChatGPT or something to do a bit of writing, maybe a post or something, I found it to be for that particular task quite sort of overrated because it's kind of like it doesn't help you in a way because you've got to come up with a really good prompt. You've got to know how to prompt it. You've got to, and it's even knowing how to do that so that you get the good stuff out the other end is quite that's quite tricky. And by the time you figured that out, you're sort of thinking, well, maybe I could have just written it myself.
yeah.
But if you have a tool which kind of gives you more of a kind of like rigorous process where you kind of know it's, as you said, breaking things up and doing, going to the right sources and what have you, I can see how that just be a lot more powerful and you get much better quality output.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you think about with ChatGPT, writing with a tool like that is a very linear process. So you have this long thread, and you're hoping that over time you're able to refine it into something usable. But if you think about using a tool like Hypertext, like that is basically creating the idea, or you're defining the idea of what you want to write about, and then using AI to help do the research and fill in the gaps and construct it as a cohesive piece. And it has like your writing style already defined, so you don't need to go and prompt like, okay, write like this, right? It will just reference a piece that you've already written, analyze that, create a writing style. So it does all these things behind the scenes for you so that all you are focused on is what you want to write about, the topic, the target audience, and maybe any secondary keywords you want to have in there for SEO purposes. It's it's clearing up your time to do the actual work as opposed to like trying to walk through and define everything once again writing with ChatGPT.
Yeah. No, it sounds really good. I mean, I feel like I should have a proper look at it after the call.
Yeah.
So, just moving on a little bit then. So, we've sort of talked about where the idea came from and what it does. But so, before you started building this, did you do any form of validation or did you just get stuck in?
Yeah, it was more of like I knew people wanted to write SEO content.
Yeah.
That was sort of the validation, right? I wish I would have done more research on who those people are. I didn't realize that it was such a diverse audience. And so, yes, I wish I would have done more of that, but I really just, a lot of my projects,
Yeah.
I just dive in and figure those things out as I go.
I suppose the validation on this, because obviously, anyone who's whatever got a business, or even if they don't have a business, they want to do posts or might need to do blog posts for another, for a business they work for.
Yeah.
So it's obvious the problem exists, isn't it? But is it obvious that they would want to solve it in this particular way, the way that you had in mind? So I suppose maybe you could have done some validation on that up
Oh,
front.
I absolutely wish I would have done validation. I'm not saying that not having
Yeah,
validated was the right thing. I wish that I would have created potentially even variations of a landing page that spoke to very specific audiences and then got enough traffic to them to say, okay, is there interest here? Is it worth building out this specific tool for this specific audience? That's how I would do it now, as opposed to just, okay, I'm going to build this entire application, spend
yeah,
6 months doing that, right? And I know this is a classic indie hacker problem where you don't want to take the time to validate the product because you're too interested in going in and building, right? Like that is
yeah,
the fun part in a lot of ways. But if you do that, you're going to find that you have a huge problem on the other side, which is then trying to match what you built with an audience that is kind of an unknown at that point. Much easier to do it the other way around, which is, I think, exactly what most people will tell you who've done this is like validate your idea and then
Yeah.
build a product. But
I think most people who get somewhere end up doing it both ways, and
yeah.
to
Hmm.
fit, in the end. But and I certainly did. So basically, it was a sort of you went the kind of if I build it, they will come path,
Yeah. Yep.
and we'll talk in a minute about sort of how that worked out. But so we've talked a little bit about the kind of we've talked around the kind of unique selling point, I guess, your kind of this process or methodology that's sort of baked into your product. Are there any other do you have any other competitors who were then, or probably not? It seems like maybe you were sort of first to do it this way, I guess, but are there some competitors now? Have some others come along and see what you've done, or just others have come up and done a similar thing?
Yeah, I think there probably in general are fewer tools like this. I haven't looked at specifically like who is approaching the problem this way. The way I think about it is any AI writing tool for SEO content or bloggers is a competitor. Because a lot of times customers aren't looking for this specific methodology for accomplishing the problem.
Hmm.
They might not even care, right? They're just looking at the quality at the end. And that's tricky because you want to be able to deliver that quality quickly, but you also want to make sure that the proper formatting of the article, the research is done right, and that takes a little bit of time, like setting up an article. So yeah, there's. I'm sorry, I lost the initial question on this one.
Yeah, no, it was just around whether there are any competitors. It's interesting, and this goes back a little bit to the validation thing about how you said, well, obviously people need to be able to do blog posts, so it kind of doesn't need to be validated. And in a sense, now you're saying, well, I know there are other tools that do AI generated blog posts, and maybe it doesn't matter to people that they do them a different way. To
Yeah,
me, they're sort of still my competitors. But then on the other hand, it seems to me like you really do have quite a kind of sort of a USP here with the way that you baked in this process, and that's how to get the high quality sort of well researched articles out. And
yeah.
I would have thought that's something that does really differentiate your product and sort of puts you into a little category of your own for the people who understand it. And then maybe it's just more about how do you communicate that and really get that across so that it matters to them and it's something they value, and so they come to you rather than someone else.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was exactly my initial thinking on this. And maybe it was just a matter of the initial customers I was attracting to my website that weren't valuing that.
Yeah.
For a long time, I was focused on these are like in-depth articles, right? Like this isn't just some cursory overview that you're publishing. Um, but what I found over time is that actually I was just too far ahead of the curve in terms of like what I was trying to promote. People
Hmm.
didn't care at that point.
No.
Especially when you're on X and you're in a bubble of like everyone creating this amazing technology. Most of the public is not there yet, so they're looking for solutions that have specific problems, but they might not care how you're accomplishing that. Maybe
Mm.
some subset of them do. So I had to really simplify my messaging and even just the UI to make it much more like my competitors because they were getting customers and I really wasn't. And there was a reason for that. I think I'd overcomplicated things. And
Mm.
although that is definitely a selling point, the in-depth aspect of this, it was just not the right one at the time.
At the time, yeah, as you say, maybe a bit ahead of things, but in a good way. I feel like maybe the sort of quality control aspect is becoming more mainstream now because we're starting to
Yeah.
look at starting to look at the quality of all this written material, but also like code that's being generated by these tools, and kind of looking, okay, it's great, it absolutely pumps this code out and it kind of looks good and it sort of works, but then the devil's in the detail, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I feel like we're starting to wake up to that. So in some ways, I sort of feel like maybe you're about to have your moment. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. It's a good point though, especially like with coding coming on using tools like Cursor.
mhm.
You look at the code that's been generated, and for the most part, like you said, it does a good job. but then
Yeah.
it does weird things, or it like takes the code in a different direction that you were expecting, and it just assumed that you wanted to go that way with
Yeah.
it. AI does the same thing with writing as well. It's like,
Yeah.
no, this isn't what I intended, which is one of the reasons I built the outline tool within Hypertext, because people wanted more control over like specific subsections within the articles. They didn't want AI to just come up with any piece, right? They were representing themselves when they published this, so they needed a tool that could really control. And my whole thing is like, I love automation. I would love to be able to just say, hey, here's some inputs. I want an LLM to take it and create this from start to finish, and I don't want to do anything else about it. But when you're creating a tool for somebody else who is publishing it as their own piece, they usually want to have much more of a say in terms of like, what are we covering in this article, right? Like, what are the secondary keywords we're hitting? What are the internal and external links? Like, there are just so many more considerations than just automate this process, right?
Yeah.
It took a long time to understand that piece of it as well.
Yeah. It's not just writing for writing's sake, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Great. Okay. Let's move on then and just talk about sort of the progress, sort of how well the business is doing realistically.
Yeah.
So when did you launch the product and start charging, I suppose?
Yeah, it was launched in, I think, March 2024. And I use launched in like air quotes because it's been launched and relaunched so many times that it it sort of lost its meaning in terms of what it means to launch it. But it
Yeah.
was released at that point. Actually, it wasn't even called Hypertext. It was called The Lead,
Okay.
which, if you think about like the saying, don't bury the lead, that's where that came from. I thought it was clever at the time. Nobody knew what it meant. And so I rebranded to Hypertext. So I just need something cool that sounds better,
Yeah.
more
Yeah. I think it
techy,
works.
right?
And then if you don't mind me asking, and I think it's been a little bit of a kind of it went up quite quickly and then maybe it's tailed off a bit. But the on the MRR side and customers, you able to give us an idea of sort of where you got up to, where you are now?
Yeah. So it got up to just under 3K MRR. And this was in the middle of February of this year.
Yeah.
So my third daughter was born at the end of February. I was hoping that by the time she was born, I would hit that 3K MRR mark. But that actually ended up being the high water mark. And so
Yeah.
since then, I'm down to about 2K MRR. And this has been a real lesson for me in like what happens to a business if you're not actively engaged in it. Like I had to step aside, obviously, a new child in the
Yeah.
house. Like there's other responsibilities. I can't be spending my time consumed on the business at this point. And so, yeah, I kind of took my foot off the gas. Didn't do as much marketing, running ads, even just general communication, newsletter updates to my existing audience and customer base. So yeah, it's kind of trailed off at that point. I don't think it's just that though. I think that also LLMs are much better at writing these days. And then
Yeah.
you also have the fact that people are relying less on Google for traffic. So there's just kind of a confluence of factors that are having it dwindle off.
Yeah. So is that sort of a I mean for 3K February, so is that a fairly is it a sort of steady kind of decline now, or
It
did it
is.
drop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was no one thing.
Yeah.
It's been a steady decline.
Yeah.
And prior to that, I was pushing out features weekly, if not daily.
Yeah.
Sometimes, bug fixes, just things that anytime I would have a customer write in and be like, oh, hey, could you change this? Like the secondary keywords things. Very easy to add in something like that, right? So I took a day, added it, pushed it up, announced it. And then anytime you send an email to announce a new feature, you potentially attract more people to try it out, right?
Yeah.
So there was just this cycle that I had built up that when
Yeah.
I stopped doing that, I got to see what happens, right? Like things just sort of fade out. Maybe not every business experiences this, but
Yeah.
I don't have much of an organic presence in terms of traffic to the website either. Like
Yeah.
that's another piece we can talk about, but I never ended up really doing my own SEO. I
Yeah.
tried with a blog for Hypertext, but since I don't have the technical skills as an SEO, I didn't know how to do keyword research very well and figure out how to drive that traffic. So yeah, there's a ton that goes into it, but yeah, so that's sort of where I'm at is around 2K MRR.
Okay. So you took your foot off the gas, and then the MRR sort of reflected that after a little while, and has continued to do so. So, so far, have you not decided to pick things back up a gear and get back on the features and try and turn that back around?
I don't know if I want to at this point. So
Yeah.
that is the question: is like, is it worth it? I might try something where I scale the features down or make them more specific to one target audience. I think if I do try to revive it, it will be more targeted towards people who run businesses who want to get more organic traffic, and then raise prices to the point where,
Yeah.
like right now, it's basically consumer, prosumer level prices, which is good for getting a bunch of people in the door, but churn is higher and they might give up on their projects more easily, right? And then they don't need a tool like this. Whereas a business, you're looking at a much longer runway for them.
Yeah.
So that would be an approach, but I'm also working on a new tool as well right now aimed for building newsletters,
Yeah.
which is, I'm going to take a lot of what I learned from Hypertext and apply it to this. So that's the current plan.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have a name for that yet, or is that too early days?
No, it's called Newsletter Ops.
Yep.
I have an MVP out there right now.
Yep.
I do have one paying customer, which has been cool. I've been getting some real feedback from that.
Awesome.
It launched early last week. And yeah, I'm excited to see where this one goes because it is a shift in thinking away from organic traffic to really owning your audience in terms of like, okay, yes, you have to use social media to build up an audience, but then if you can get them on your newsletter, you have their email, you can continuously retarget them, send them interesting information, and sort of start from the ground up rather than trying to rely on something like Google, which again is another platform risk. Nobody knew that it would be a platform risk, but if SEO was your main driver of traffic, like that gets tough, right? So it's taken another approach at this problem that I'm personally more interested in because you don't have to do the whole like keyword research thing necessarily, right? Like you're writing on interesting topics in interesting, more novel ways. It feels more like a natural conversation than something that's more programmatic, like AI SEO content often is.
Yep. Oh, that's great. Okay, well, there might be a future episode to do there then when that starts to get
that'd be a lot of fun.
momentum. It sounds really interesting. Yeah, and for now, obviously, still turning over 2K. I mean, it's still helpful, isn't it? Might as well just keep the lights on there.
Yeah, keeping that on. We'll see how long I have with that. Again, like the traffic is just pretty minimal. I'm getting maybe one or two trial customers per day.
Yeah.
The big not mistake, but one of the problems with Hypertext was I was able to attract about 10,000 free users to try the tool.
Yeah.
I maybe had at most 200 customers out of those 10,000.
Right.
So it was this interesting dilemma where I did a pretty good job marketing the tool, but I did a bad job of converting trial users into paying customers. Now, a lot of that may have been just targeting the wrong audience. I mean, I remember putting up and sponsoring, there's an AI for that. I did this like multiple times early in building this tool because I was like, oh yeah, these people are obviously interested in AI tools.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to check this out. But that was just not like, it was driving signups, but that was not the kind of person who would buy a tool like this.
People who are curious about kind of new tools, but not necessarily have the real pain that you're trying to solve.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're like AI enthusiasts, like what's out there, what's cool. I'm interested in checking this out. Easy to get them to sign up, but then I'm like confused, like, okay, is a sign up the same as like interest? Not really. Like you really need to dig in and figure out who your customer profiles that actually wants a tool like this.
Yeah. I mean, my gut feel, for what it's worth, I think there has to be a market for what you've built. I just feel like it's just, in my mind, you're approaching it the right way. And actually, for me, I can imagine if I was to do some blog posts, the idea of doing the ChatGPT, it just doesn't really, like I said, for what I said earlier, I'm kind of I've got to come up with this prompt. There's no structure. There's nothing there to really guide. There's no guardrails, as I said. So the idea of having something more structured, and also just the consistency of your posts as well. And I was thinking about that because you go to ChatGPT and it's kind of cool in a way. It's got this memory, now, and it's just, you feel like anytime you go on there, it kind of remembers. I know there's context windows and things like that, but it seems like whenever I ask it a question, it kind of selectively pulls in random stuff I've said before, and sometimes that's great. But if you're just trying to write a blog post on a very specific thing and you want it to just not muck around, not start pulling all this random stuff I've asked, it doesn't work too well for that. Whereas I can imagine your tool, I guess, scopes things better and keeps things, sort of on topic.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is the real advantage of the research reports, because then you can not only, the other thing is like these research reports are very comprehensive. So if you wanted to reference them for your own writing, without even having AI, right, you have a comprehensive list of notes right there available to you. You don't even need to use AI for the writing. You can just look at them, just like you would do if you're doing journalism, right? You have your notes, you have your references. And then really the way I think about it these days is I'm creating that first rough draft with AI. But it should not be thought of as like the final piece. I think a lot of people think of it like, oh, I don't need to do any editing. Like, why is the introduction sound the same every time? Well, it's like, yeah, you're using AI tools. But I think you're right. Like, there is still a need for this. It's just figuring out, where do I fit in terms of like what kind of people need to use this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you keep it alive, and I guess there's no rush, and you've got another product on the go as well. So you've got kind of a sort of multi-product setup, kind of.
Yeah, and I might try to get them to work well together, right? Because then you have your newsletter campaign, you also have your SEO campaign. They can send traffic to each other, and in a lot of ways, that's like a great way to do marketing, is to have a newsletter to be able to build that list up. Then you have your SEO that takes much longer to get that organic traffic built up. So yeah, they could have some synergy.
Absolutely. Great. So they mentioned you, the initial trials, you got like 10K initial trials. Was that over a short period of time, or?
No. So this is like, maybe at this point I have 10,000.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So this is still like a year and a half into it.
Okay. So 10K sort of total over that. Yeah. And so how did you get the word out initially? You mentioned the AI for, there's an AI for that. Was that basically it?
It was that, it was trying to run Google ads. Yeah. It was trying desperately to like use, I forget what the company's called, but there's a company that allows you to place ads on newsletters, just sort of generic ads that get sent out. You don't get to control necessarily what the content is on those. It's not like sponsoring a specific newsletter. So I tried that approach. It drove traffic, but no conversions, barely even any trials from those. And it was very expensive. I mean, a lot of these approaches are like, you can do that once you've figured out who you're targeting, but it's not a great way to figure that out because it'll cost you a lot of money. Yeah. So I don't even remember. It was just trying everything. A lot of product tons, a lot of directories. I used John Rush's listing bot, which is pretty good. Those like automated listings. And yeah, I mean, there were so many things, so many approaches back then. And I can talk about what ultimately like kicked it off, but I don't know if you have any other questions prior to that.
Well, I was just one little idea that popped into my head was, did you try approaching like marketing agencies, because they have to produce these blog posts for all their clients, don't they? And they often don't even know about the topic they're having to write about. Yeah. Did you consider that as a channel?
I did sponsor a newsletter that was for freelancers. Many of them are writers, right? And so I was expecting like, oh yeah, this will be great for them because
Yeah.
then they will use a tool like this and write on behalf
Uh,
of their clients.
yep.
But I got crickets, and I was like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
felt kind of burned from that. And I was like, man, okay, well, maybe that is, maybe they have some pride in their work that they don't want to use AI tools,
So, um, obviously, yeah, churn's a bit of a problem at this point. Realistically, you're kind of losing more customers than you bring in, I guess, in a given month.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
But that could be turned around. It's not like, it's is it, so roughly how much are you losing a month sort of in terms of MRR?
I haven't looked recently. It's
Yeah.
maybe 250,
Yeah,
but
yeah. And you might
I
find it bottoms out at kind of hardcore of customers who will never leave.
exactly. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
hoping there's a core there that are like, really using this quite frequently. And there is. I mean, I can look at the analytics and see that a lot of people
Yeah.
do use this
I mean,
often.
certainly some of the, like the reviews I was reading before I came onto the call, and the people, those people, they seem to feel like they've really found the product, which is absolutely
Mhm.
perfect for them.
Yeah.
Um,
And like I
so
mentioned earlier, I think what happens is you have a lot of people who want to start a blog, right? They get into it, and a few months later, they're like, "This is a lot of work. I don't want to do this anymore." They cancel all the tools that they're using to do this kind of work, and I think that's especially with the newsletter that ended up working, that drove a ton of traffic to my website and customers. That was kind of their niche. Yeah, so that is my assumptions of what's
yeah,
happening
yeah,
here.
great. Okay, let's talk a little bit about just the product itself. I mean, obviously, presuming you built the MVP
Yeah.
and the product,
Hmm.
was it? And did you prototype it in any way? Did you build something you threw away, or did you just start by building an MVP and then kind of layer it up into kind of a full product?
Yeah, I mean, the way I typically build is I'll just build version one, right? However, it's
Yeah.
in my head. I don't even go
Yep.
into Figma, creative design. It's just like, all right, throw it up there. This is kind of how I think it should work. Get a few people to use it. Somebody says, "Oh yeah, this is." I remember this very specifically. Someone was like, "This UI is way too basic," and I was like, "All right, time for version two. Let's scrap everything. Time to make this more
Yep.
more complex, like more options in here." Because again, like my idea was I want to automate everything so the user doesn't really have to see much, but
Yep.
that's not what most people want. They want more step by step. So yeah, I built the MVP. Did not. Honestly, looking back, I'm not even sure why I kept going month to month to month to get to the point where I ended up hitting that inflection point because there was so little feedback that I was working with. So
Yeah.
few customers were actually paying at that point. I had maybe a couple hundred MRR, but um, yeah, and so I just kept building layer on layer, version after version, making it better over time. And then it did hit the point where it was like, okay, this is a good, viable product that people will pay for. But man, it took many months to get to that.
Yeah, roughly how long did it? I mean, you talk about getting to a point where you had a product where you felt, okay, this is something I can kind of launch more publicly, try and promote a bit.
Yeah, exactly. This was like, okay, I feel good showing this to
Yeah.
people now, not like embarrassed,
Yeah.
like, okay, this is a solid tool that I feel comfortable asking for money because like it
Yeah.
does what I say it's gonna do and I kind of understand what it should do. I started prototyping in January 2024. I would say it took a good 7 months to really feel good about it.
Yeah.
Um, so it took a long time. And, even if you're getting little scraps of user feedback here and there, those are really good guiding posts because
Yep.
they're like, it is hard to get feedback from users in general, especially for free products. So when somebody says something, like it should be like, okay, I should really focus on this because this is clearly missing. I'm sure 10 other people, 100 other people thought the same thing, just didn't say anything about it.
Yeah.
So in those
Yeah.
early days, you really need to take those cues.
Definitely. I mean, and I think you can get, in my experience as well, you can get a long way if you just manage to get two or three, say, who are really kind of really engaged. They just want to kind of test everything you do, and they give you
Yeah.
really good feedback, and you can get so much out of them. And then great if you've got another 10 to 20 who at least give you something. But it's great if you can get at least a couple of people who are really really good on the feedback and really just sort of proactive with trying it out as well. And you send them a link rather than just sitting on it and you know because you need
I
that.
wish I would have developed more of those relationships early on
Yeah.
building the product. Like, okay, here's five people. I know they have this problem. like I would just give them free access. I don't care how many tokens they use, right? Like just give me valuable feedback
Yeah.
and I'll build towards that spec. Um, Instead of what the approach I took was like, all right, let's blast this out everywhere and just wait to see kind of what catches and what I hear.
Mm,
So
yeah.
yeah, I would absolutely recommend if you can find the people who you want to use it, get feedback from them, offer them whatever, just to use it for free. Like their
Yeah.
feedback's going to be way more valuable than the $20 a month you charge them. So
Absolutely. Well, when we do the follow-up episode talking about newsletter ops, we'll find out if you did it the
yeah,
right way around
if
this
I took
time.
my advice, yes.
Yeah. We won't spoil that now.
Uh,
Okay. So in terms of kind of the sort of tech stack and any particular frameworks, tools that you use to build that?
yeah. So I use React. I'm a front-end developer.
Yep.
That's kind of like my uh, profession, right? That's what I've been doing for 13 years now. So I use React. I like TanStack, everything,
Yep.
TanStack Query, TanStack Router, um, that kind of ecosystem. And then on the back end, I use Fast API with
Yep.
Python. And then I got a Postgres database. And that's kind of it. I mean, I've used that same stack for as many years as I can now because I don't have to learn anything new. I'm
Yeah.
lucky these days that I chose those because they're very popular. AI knows how to write really solid code for those, so and I can review it quickly.
Yeah.
Makes life easy rather
Yeah.
than choosing
Absolutely.
some esoteric language that I'm like, oh man, okay, this
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
completely
Yeah. Yeah.
hallucinated with AI.
Although, yeah, so Python on the back end, you've got a little bit of kind of context switching there to do us, but it's not really a problem, is it? But
No, it's not too bad. No.
no.
And yeah, and especially with like the backend services that I'm creating, they're so simple. There's really not a lot of complexity there.
Yeah.
It's just CRUD endpoints, and then you have your AI requests. But
Yep.
actually, this new one I'm building is a little bit more complex because it uses Celery and Celery
Oh, yeah.
beat, Celery workers to do some of that scheduling tasks.
Yeah.
So I haven't played around with that too much yet. I'm excited though because this is like new technology. I wish I would
Yeah.
have known years ago when I was building. So yeah, it's pretty cool though.
Excellent. Okay. How about we move on to? I mean, I think we've sort of touched on this a little bit already, but I've just wanted to make a little bit of time to talk about some of the kind of key sort of wins and kind of learning successes slash failures. So, do you have in mind, even if it's repeating ourselves a little bit, but one thing that you feel in your kind of hypertext journey, one thing you think worked really well that was kind of a big sort of win?
hmm So the big win was when I actually found the audience that really could use this tool. Um, it's funny because there's this account called Niche Site Lady on X. She talks about building niche site contents,
Okay.
niche content sites, and like forever I was thinking this is the kind of audience that I want to be using my tool. I tried contacting her several times, just DM on X, and didn't hear anything. Finally, I was like, all right, I'm just going to pay to buy an ad spot on her newsletter. And that's kind of what opened the door to make this a viable business. Because not only was paying for an ad good for exposure to the product, obviously, but then I was able to work with her to become an affiliate, which eventually led to her promoting Hypertext on my behalf. Now, an affiliate program, generally speaking, didn't work for me, but for her particular case, because she had such a big audience and she was willing to write recommendations to use the tool, it worked really well. That was like the big breakthrough in September 2024. That added a lot of MRR on top of the product. So um,
Yeah. That's great. Was
yeah,
that was it quite a sort of short-lived thing though? Did you get initial influx and then it tailed off once it sort of got through to her audience and those who kind of thought that looks great, I'll go for it, and then
yeah, it was. It had, I'd say, about a month where it really did lift up the product, and it was a lot of people who were interested in these kind of tools because they'd used many of them before. They'd used Koala, they'd used Write Blogger's another one. So they experimented with these in order to do the same thing that I was trying to do with Hypertext, and resonated with them. Again, the problem with this audience is a lot of them were looking for that passive income source, right? They're writing
Yeah.
niche content sites, and especially with all of the updates with Google, it's just not that dependable. User behavior is changing, where if you're curious about something, you're probably going to AI first rather than Google to search it. But in terms of like what worked, it was absolutely finding the right target audience that could use this. So now I could replicate that and go, I mean, there's many of these accounts, right, that have similar things. I could go and try experimenting with that more.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And one thing, so I guess one sort of significant failure, but hopefully something that you learned from.
Yeah. So, I mean, there were a bunch of failures, honestly. Well, one of the things I did, I thought, I was like, why aren't people paying for this? It must be because people don't like subscription pricing anymore.
Right.
So I took like 2 weeks and built out usage-based pricing. And I was like, all right, this is going to be great. Now people are only going to pay for what they create. People are going to love it. And it was like an incredibly complex system to create, first of all. Tracking tokens and then like figuring out how much you charge on top of that to use your product. And then I think maybe like 2 or 3 people ended up using it. And I got like $2 at the end of the month. And I was like, like this is not worth it. This is miserable. I'm not doing this again.
Usage pricing, it can work, but it is sort of sold as a bit of a silver bullet these days. And often, customers, users, they're not so keen on it. Because suddenly they don't know what the price is going to be.
Yeah, it's a mystery to them. They're like, all right, I don't know how much this is going to cost as an action, as opposed to having like a specific number of articles or credits or whatever. It's like, that's very concrete. That's what they care about. Like, so that was awful. But I quickly realized that I do not need to innovate on pricing. Like, that is not the problem. The problem is the product. I have other things to worry about here. What else? Like Google Ads, I spent thousands on that experimenting. It's something that maybe could work, but I didn't. Again, I'm not a keyword researcher. I didn't really know like how to figure out search intent for a product like this. I probably would hire somebody else to help me with that, like that very specific thing. Because if I could run Google Ads, I feel like that'd be an awesome channel. I just don't know how to do it right. That's another skill set that I don't want to figure out at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. A few other things just to mention real quick. Like I tried the influencer marketing. Like you'll get these people who write to you and they're like, oh yeah, I got 100,000 people on LinkedIn. Like, give me $500. So I tried that once. And, again, this is like, I don't know if these are fake followers or how they do this, but they like boost these accounts to make them look really big and they have practically no influence, right? So that would not be the right way to approach influencer following. If you're going to do it, like find the person you want to be promoting on your behalf. Don't let them come to you. So that was a mistake. Again, this is like, it was exciting to do it. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to have exposure to 100,000 people, but it just doesn't work that way, No. And a bunch of other things like directory listings. They did get traffic to my site, but again, these aren't really the people who would necessarily use a product like this. So, those are kind of the top things.
Yeah. Yes. Still feels to me that, this product could still come back, and it's just about finding that right sort of channel where you're just going to get a steady, sustainable, flow of the right kind of people. Cause I feel like they're out there.
Yeah. I agree. I think if I really simplified my message to one specific user profile, that's the way to go. Because I think my H1 right now is like your favorite article writing tool or AI article writing tool. And that's just too general because like lots of people need to write articles. Who is this built for? If it's built for everyone, it's basically not usable for anyone, right? So, Yeah, because remind me, so rough number of customers at the moment. I haven't looked recently. It's probably around 120, I think.
120, but this is the thing, if this to kind of bounce back, it's not like you need 10,000 customers. If you had 500 customers, it becomes a lot it's moving in the right direction, isn't it? And that you
Yeah,
just kind of think that's got to be
exactly.
achievable. There's got to be
Yeah.
500 people out because I think you built a great product and it's got a clear kind of USP to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess maybe you're sort of for the moment kind of winding down a little bit on Hypertext, but maybe you kind of pick it back up. But so because I was going to ask if there's one thing you're sort of trying to figure out with at the moment, something you're sort of struggling with, but maybe that's more about whether you carry on with it or not.
It is. Yeah. It's like,
Yeah,
do I put the time into trying to revive it? Do I just move on? And, it's still making money. It's still nice to
yeah,
have. It's still online. But like I said, my time is really limited. I have a full-time job, three
yeah,
kids. Like there's a lot to do. And I can't really focus on two products at once right now. So right now it's just kind of going to be in the background.
yeah,
And I'm comfortable with that. I might revive it and make these products synergistic at some point. But I've also thought about selling it, but then
yeah.
that process is it's also a pretty big thing to go through. And I don't think it would necessarily sell for as much as I would want because I know the value's there and but it's a hassle, right? So
Yeah, yeah. From where I'm sitting, you'd have to really need the money, and it wouldn't be a ton of money, but
yeah,
better holding on to it, I think.
yeah, agreed.
Yeah, yeah. Great. Okay. So let's just move on then, sort of getting towards wrapping up. But I mean, just thinking about sort of kind of future, but for Hypertext somewhat, but we've already talked around that. Maybe just more future in general. Just do you have any sort of goals in mind, short, long term? I guess it might be more around this idea of you've got a kind of multi-product kind of business developing here with a theme that unites those two products. And there's some sort of goals or a vision around that.
Yeah. You know, the one thing is like I don't know if my any of my products will become my full-time job ever. Like that is kind of how I saw things going in my 20s. Like, okay, I'm going to build out a business that will be my full-time thing. Now I look at this as like side income alongside my full-time job. And I kind of have to having a family
Mm-hmm.
and health insurance and everything that goes along with that. It's just life, it gets very expensive at this point. So, I would really love to have these products become profitable and really support the lifestyle that we want to live. But I don't think at this point, unless either of them become hugely successful, that they will be like the main thing I do. So I want to use them to learn. I want to learn how to do marketing more effectively, right? I'm happy growing them more slowly over time. I mean, newsletter ops is going to be my main focus. I'm hoping I can get this up to like a million AARR by the time I'm 40, which is
Yeah,
about 3 years now, which would be
yeah,
awesome. I don't know if it's
yeah,
realistic. At that point, I would be comfortable going full time and doing that, right? And taking that risk on. This one feels like it has the most chance of success of all the products I've worked on in the last 10 years. Like I know who needs to use this. There's not many competitors right now. So
yeah.
hopefully your audience isn't like, all right, this is a great opportunity and time to start building. But I think I have some ideas that will solidify a moat here as well. So
Excellent.
yeah, I'm excited about this one. That is the goal, is like just see even before I start doing a lot of marketing for this, make a really solid product that I can use, that I like using, and then get a few additional users on there who are, like you said earlier, like really understand what they need to do, get their advice before going and trying to spray this everywhere.
Sounds great, and I know I think that's a really kind of cool sort of approach. Just there's no big rush. You've got a
Yeah,
job that you like and you enjoy that, and you've got some nice side income here, but it could develop into more. You don't want to kind of be working every evening and weekend, do you? You've got other things going on.
yeah.
But who knows? It could develop into something maybe that becomes a full-time thing later on. Maybe ends
It,
up looking after you a little later on. Retired a little early with a bit of luck.
exactly. Yeah, that is the hope, right? Like I would
Yeah,
love to just focus on one product, my own thing, right, and let it fund my lifestyle.
yeah,
But it's also very stressful to make that the goal right now,
yeah,
knowing that it'll take a long time to get there. I have other things to do. I've got a family to raise, and so making that the objective now is tough. Because if I was in my 20s and I did the indie or I did the
Yeah.
digital nomad thing for a
Yeah.
while, where I
Yeah.
traveled
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
had fun doing that, you can live off of very little doing that.
Yeah.
But now it's like, yeah, I got to be more serious about it. So, and it's not to say I'm not going to create a serious product and that I really do want to grow, but yeah, just from a philosophical standpoint, this is hopefully going to be a nice side income.
Yeah. Just got to be realistic and just have
Yeah.
that balance, haven't you?
Yep.
Um, Great. So, and kind of generally, I'm guessing, you're a bootstrapper at heart. I would guess. So, would you have any
Yeah.
kind of any thoughts around you might raise some money at some point, or is that just kind of not how you want to do it?
Yeah, no, for something like this, I definitely would not raise money. This something in my 20s, that was kind of like, oh yeah, you got to raise money. That's the way to
Yeah.
do it, right? 15 years ago, that was kind of the ethos. But these days, I don't think there's any reason to raise money unless you're building something so technically sophisticated like hardware, where it
Yeah.
obviously is the case that you should be raising money to grow a team. But if you're a developer or even a marketer, you have some money you can of your own to put into it. That's the way to go. I can't even imagine trying to seek money otherwise. So
Yep. Great. And then just longer term, say it all comes off, and maybe Hypertext comes up, newsletter drops, gets you up to your 1 million, and you've got something there with kind of sort of value. Would you kind of lean towards holding onto it potentially sort of forever, potentially sort of passing it on, or would you look to get to an exit if you could?
um, I like the idea of just holding on to a company forever.
Yeah.
Selling, like if it was so much money where I'm like, okay, this is the obvious thing, like I'm set for life, maybe at that point, right? But I like building so much that it would be hard to let go of it. If I felt like I couldn't move the company forward anymore and I was the bottleneck and it
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
have life after me, then I would consider selling it. Especially as you scale a team up, uh, you can run into a bottleneck where there are skills that I would not have to grow from some certain amount to some other higher amount that somebody else could do. Then I would sell it. But yeah, I like the idea of thinking of it as a lifelong business as well.
Yeah. I like that. Great. Okay. Right. Let's sort of wrap things up here. So, one thing would be just nice if you have it, a tip or a kind of message for a kind of would be sort of aspiring founders, maybe sitting on the sidelines and thinking maybe taking the leap.
Um, yeah. Well, I wrote down a bunch of tips that because I was thinking about this last night, so I couldn't come up with one, and I came up with like 8 of them. So if you're
Yeah.
okay with me
Okay.
just going through them,
Shoot. Yeah.
cool. Yeah. So first thing is keep your marketing message simple, not clever. The simpler it is, the easier it is going to be to resonate with people who visit your website.
Yeah.
Be as specific as possible about who your product is for. You should really make sure that they know that this is for them and it's not some abstract concept. One thing I would do is I would start pricing I would start pricing the product lower than what you're comfortable with initially. And then once
Interesting.
you find product market fit, then increase your pricing, right? I don't know if that's actually good advice and
No,
generally speaking, but
I like it. It's a little bit contrarian, but I like
yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, I think then you get a wider net of users, and then once you know what you're building and who you're building for, bump up the price, and they won't be as sensitive about it at that point. Um, think of your trial conversion flow as a product itself. So it's easy to just add on all of the things to get your users to upgrade after the fact, after you've built the product. That's usually what I do is I build out this nice product and then I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that I got to prompt them to upgrade at some point. But really that whole thing is like a product itself, right? So you got to think of the email sequencing for onboarding. You got to think about when do you prompt them to upgrade? How does your pricing page look? There's so much there that a lot of developers sort of skim over, but it's almost the most important piece of it. So think about those things. And then I'll just go with one more here because I'll send you the rest if you want to post them sometime.
Please do.
I think starting with guerrilla style marketing, where you have these one-on-one conversations, especially on Reddit. Reddit is a great place to go and look and find people talking about these subjects. Just send them a DM, ask them if they're interested in talking about it. Don't send your link, just have a conversation initially, and then build that relationship, get them to try it out, get a few of those users really trying your product, get their feedback. Once you've done that a few times, you know what you need to fix. And then you also know if that resonates with those types of users as well. Reddit users tend to be more outside the tech bubble. So you get better feedback, I think, depending on what you're building. I mean, there's cases where that's not.
Yeah, Reddit is just coming up more and more as a great place to go when you're trying to get something going. It's come up in all 3 episodes now. But also just a really good message to end there. I think in terms of a starting point for a kind of would be founder before you start thinking, could I do this, and trying to get that confidence up, is just kind of talking to people, isn't it? You've got an idea, find some people to talk to about it, and you might find that sort of the confidence develops from there. They may encourage you to go forward with it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and you might be overly confident about what you're building too. I mean, that's easy to do. Is I've got this plan, I'm going to execute it perfectly.
That's the other side.
Don't do that. Talk to some people because they will poke holes in it, and you'll be able to fix your plan and then move forward.
100%. Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, this has been just a really insightful chat. I think there's tons in here for people to unpack, and it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you as well.
Yeah. Thank you,
Jerad. And genuinely look forward to doing another episode at some point once you've got a little further along with newsletter ops. I think that'd be really interesting.
Let's do it. Yeah, I'll keep you updated. We'll schedule something.
Cool. All right. So what we'll do, I'll pop some links in to the show notes if people have got them to Hypertext. Also, we can drop a link in there for newsletter ops. Let's do it. Game there. So if anyone wants to look that up. And in terms of if anyone wanted to kind of reach out to you to chat about one of your products or just ask you a question, where's the best place to reach you?
Yeah, X is the best place. It's Maplethorpe J. I'm also on Blue Sky and Instagram, but I would just say X. Just go there. It's easiest.
Great, Maplethorpe J. But I'll grab that off you in a minute and get that in the notes as well.
Sure.
Brilliant. Yep. Well, once again, absolute pleasure, Jerad, and thanks for your time, and speak to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. It's been a lot of fun.
All the best. Cheers.
Yeah.